open the meeting. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he hua, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai ki te hui o te Kōrau Tōtōpū, the Long-Term Plan Finance and Performance Committee, I tēnei rā. Welcome everybody to the meeting. Obviously we have a big day ahead of us, of which we are not the main event. We're the warm-up act, and I think the expectations of warm-up acts is they go on early and they don't take too long. So with your cooperation, that'll be some of our objectives of this meeting, as we have some big items to discuss later in the day. I will use the timer for speeches for 3 minutes, and if we could all kind of agree to respect that where possible, that would be wonderful. Please let me or Elise know if you intend to leave the meeting. Morning tea will be at the conclusion of this meeting. We said 11, but you know, I think we can do better than that. So we'll start with apologies. We have apologies from Pauiwi Liz Kelly, and apologies for lateness from Deputy Mayor Foon and from Councillor Tim Brown. I believe that's all. There any others? He whakatakoto ana au I te motini, mā wai e tautoko. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. And I'll put that motion to accept those apologies. Those in favour press 1, etc. Ka whakapuaki au, kua mana te mōtini. I declare the motion carried. Are there any conflict of interest declarations for this meeting? Nope, there are none, so we'll move on to minutes. Confirm the minutes from our meeting held on 31st of May 2023. I will move that. Mā wai e tautoko. Oh, Councillor O'Neill, everybody's shy this morning, but thank you. Thanks, Teza. Anai ka potia tia te mōtini. I now put that motion, which has been moved and seconded. Ka whakapuaki au kua mana te mōtini. I declare the motion carried. Kei ore he mea mahue ki te rārangitake. There are no items not on the agenda. So we move on, and there are no public participants for this meeting, obviously, though there's some later. So we move on to our first item of general business, the CCO final statements of intent for 2023-2024. No mai Jamie Crump, ki te horo e te kōrero. Please welcome Jamie Crump to introduce the report.
Tēnā koutou I tēnei ata. I'd just like to share a few brief comments in introducing the paper. So from a council officer perspective, the final SOIs are in good shape. All the final SOIs have been reviewed and respond positively to the specific feedback provided, with each CCO making the requested amendments. But as we know, there are a number of challenges, in particular inflationary financial pressures. Both experienced Wellington and the Wellington Zoo are forecasting deficits that will potentially require council support. But on a positive note, these deficits are reduced from those that were indicated in the draft SOIs. So council will carry these potential deficits as risks in the 23-24 budget, as was the approach that was taken for this 22-23 year. But I'd also like to reiterate what a good news story CCOs are for Wellington, and what will be a challenging time over the next few years with the city in transition work and the likely recession. Our CCOs provide great benefit to Wellington. There's much to celebrate in the positive impact that they have for Pōneke. As we know, recent highlights, the opening of Tākina, snow leopards, and the FIFA Women's World Cup, which is only 3 weeks away now. Ngā mihi.
Kia ora, Jamie. He pātai me tu I mua I te tau patu. Any questions of Jamie? Doesn't appear that there are any. Thank you so much, Jamie. I would now like to invite Councillor Panovich to move this paper.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. More than happy to move this paper. I think the contents of the CCO final statements are very, very good. I liked the content. I liked the work that they do, and it's great that when they came to present to us, we could actually get a good picture of how they were performing. So I'm very happy with that. So that's all I have to say.
Someone like to second? Councillor McNulty. Would you like to speak, Councillor McNulty? Okay. Is there any debate? No. Let's put the motion. That is carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to our next item, the report back on Councillor Young's Taiwan visit and the report on the Wellington Mayoral Delegation to Asia. Nau mai Baz Kaufman and Tom Yuan ki te horo e te kōrero. Welcome, Baz. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. As an introduction, a very quick introduction, very pleased to introduce this report. It is a two-part report, so it's a report back on Councillor Young's trip to Taiwan earlier this year in regards to the Smart City Summit and Expo. And the second part of the report covers off a proposed mayoral-led business delegation to Asia in September. As you can well imagine, there hasn't been a lot of exchanges between our sister cities in terms of physical visits over the last few years because of COVID, and so I think the last triennium I don't think we had any of those kind of visits take place. All of it was online, and as soon as the borders started opening up, we've really seen lots of requests from our sister cities and our friendly cities overseas to come and visit, and you'll see those appended to the report. And at the same time, we've had lots of businesses and organisations and groups in Wellington approach us asking for our support in terms of visiting the sister cities overseas. And that's culminated in the paper in front of you today. It is a business-led delegation, a mayoral-led business delegation visiting China, South Korea and Japan. All the details are in the report, so we can take questions on that. At a high level, the focus is on film and education, as well as signing our sister city agreement with Seoul, hopefully. What I would note is it is a draft. The fundamentals of the proposed trip are there. Generally what happens is we reach this point where a decision is made at council, and then there are other businesses that are tentatively talking to us about, they've got expressions of interest, shall we say, but nothing's been confirmed at this stage. So once the decision is made today, we can finalise the program of work. At the moment, we're kind of looking at 15 to 20 odd people in terms of the delegation per city at this point in time, and so not all of them will go to all cities, but that's roughly the order of the size that we're talking about. The details in terms of the sister cities, got a bit of a history in the paper because I know some of you are new, so we've got a bit of history in the paper in terms of where the relationships have come from, and also the focus in terms of what we're trying to achieve for each city as well. So quite a lot of detail in there. I'll leave it there, but we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
He pātai me utu I mua I te tau patu. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Calvert.
Thank you, and it's really just about Seoul. So, a friendly city was signed in 2016. Do you recall what how long did it take just to get to that stage, and what was the sort of effort required to get to that friendly city relationship?
So it was 2016 when I think the first visit took place, and I think that's when the friendly city status emerged. And the next milestone, I think, was in 2020. You might have to jump in here, Tom.
No, that's fine. It was more about just understanding how to get to that friendly city status. So there was obviously a visit in 2016.
Yeah.
You may not recall, but I just wanted to know whether you perhaps could remember the length of time that led up to that becoming a friendly city.
It always takes a bit of time. So generally, it takes a few visits, expressions of interest, memorandum of understandings between cities for a period of time. Generally, a friendly city, you can stay at that level, but if you want to move into a sister city, it takes a number of years and visits. So I think in 2020, in terms of Seoul, there was an in-principle decision to enter into a sister city agreement. The report was written up and it was actually presented to committee and agreed. So we've got that in-principle decision to enter into a sister city agreement. And so what happened, in essence, is COVID came along and just stymied things for a while, and now that the borders are reopened, we're reconnecting and hoping to sign in September this year.
Thank you.
Councillor Chung.
Thank you very much for that. Reading the description of what makes, or the criteria for a sister city, I see the economics is actually economic benefits.
Councillor Chung, questions are on this paper about the visit and the report back.
Okay, so on this trip here, do we have any specific targets for the economic economic cooperation between Seoul and Wellington?
So it largely depends on the delegation. So what we do is we obviously facilitate and connect people to industry overseas. That's what we do. We help open the doors. It's up to the business delegation themselves to obviously enter into business agreements. We do circle back, so we do survey work afterwards, and obviously we've got the connections to the businesses, so we do get an understanding in terms of how successful they are. But it's at that granular level, it is at that business level that we look at it, and so it's largely through survey work and hearing back from the business that we understand how successful we've been.
Great, thank you.
All right, it appears there are no more questions. Thank you both. I am going to move this motion, and Deputy Mayor Foon is going to second. I'll speak very briefly, which is just to thank Councillor Young for representing us, and also to say I look forward to Mayor Whānau representing us on the world stage. Is there any debate? Oh, look, Councillor Young, would you like to speak?
In the interest of short meetings, no, except that I did find the trip fascinating because I've been to China, I've been to Hong Kong, I've never been to Taiwan, and it was interesting to see what a Chinese city that is not communist is like. So I find it fascinating. And they've done great things there.
Thank you, Councillor. Would you like to speak as seconder, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and kia ora, and thank you, Councillor Young, for representing us in Taiwan. That was really good of you. So yeah, just this has become a new world for me, and I'm looking to become a representative for Wellington City on the Global Cities Board. So just understanding more about what our international relationships, how they can benefit us and we can benefit them. But also I just want to acknowledge Mayor Whānau visiting Asia, and that's really exciting. Really keen for you to have a conversation about, the Garden of Beneficence, and also really keen to see digital business opportunities connected up while we're there. I think that's a really good opportunity too. So kia ora, that's all from me.
Looks like there's no further debate. So e nai nei ka potia te motene. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Ka whakapuaki o kua mana te motene. I declare the motion carried. All right, we're rattling through it. We now move on to actions tracking and forward program. I suggest we bundle those. No, my Stephen MacArthur, ki te hore e te kōrero.
Morena, councillors, I'd take both papers as read. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Calvert.
Yes, it's really going back to this, a couple of actions that, well, one's 2021 and another one's 2022, and wondering how much longer they're going to be there.
Councillor, could you actually identify which ones?
Oh, sorry. That I think that the start page 238. One's there's a Chaffers Marina. I'm just looking at the.
Oh, at the top of.
Yeah, very very top. 17th of June, 2021.
I think the best thing to do is to take that offline and come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Unless there's somebody in the room that can actually answer that question.
That's all right. It just seems that we've got a couple of items that are over, 2 years old on the.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
All right, looks like there are no further questions. I will move this. Councillor Panovich will second. Yes,
And
with a question mark, with an upward inflection. Is there any debate, councillors? No, and ka poti te motene. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Ka whakapuaki au kua mana te motene. That motion is carried. Right, now we move to a motion about public excluded. So the recommendation is up on the screen pursuant to the provisions of the Local Government Act, that to exclude the public from the following part of the proceedings of this meeting. And this is with regards to progressing the sludge minimisation facility. I will move the motion to go into public excluded. Can I have a seconder? Councillor McNulty. Is there any debate? Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. I am going to approve us going into public excluded, but I do so with strong reservations. I mean, this is a major piece of work for our council, and I noticed the previous one was also in public excluded, and we really need to look at how we can provide far more information before we enter into agreements. Rather than after them, because the public do have an opportunity, or should have an opportunity, to have a say, because this is money belonging to Wellingtonians that we're putting into this. So I would have liked to have seen a bit more transparency around this, but I accept the officer's recommendations, but just noting that I'm very reluctant any future ones to have everything public excluded. Thank you.
Councillor Free.
Thank you. Look, I'm reluctantly supporting this. I've never voted against going into public excluded when it's been officer advised to do so. But I do feel as if there are some very big items of expenditure that are poorly understood by the public, and they really do. They must be starting to have an impact on our decision making in other areas, and I would like the public to have a bit more of an appreciation of the quantum that we're dealing with. Yeah. But I will not oppose going into public excluded, although I've come quite close to thinking it would be something I could do.
Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much on this. I'd like to echo what my fellow councillors have said. In the earlier decision on this, or discussion on this, it was reported in the press about what we're actually doing, and I think that there was sufficient feedback from there to actually ask about what's actually happening there. Where are we going? What's the total cost of this? What's the impact of the cost of this? So I think that it is in the public interest to actually know about these things, but I do agree with the officer's recommendation that this should be excluded, because we are still in the process of going through the details. But in general, I'd much prefer the public to actually know what we're doing. Thank you.
Councillor Randall, quickly, please.
Yes, I think my concern is that the choice seems to be between a report that is 100% not seen by the public and a report that is seen by the public may be redacted. And I do think when we do these issues, it would be helpful for the public if we could just publish some information in advance about what we're discussing. I know there are sensitive issues here, but taking the public on the journey with us is a really important part of this project. Thanks.
Councillor Paul.
I just want to acknowledge the concerns around transparency, and I think it is always the most important thing that the public have the most information about what we're doing with their money. However, we have to remember that the last time that a paper like this came to us, somebody leaked it to the press, and that significantly altered our ability to bargain and to get the best deal for the public. So that's why I think we need to be very careful with the way that we treat this subject, and we can only blame ourselves that it's not even more transparent than it could be.
All right, I will now put the motion. We'll now take a minute. Apologies to our many guests. We're going to have to clear the room and take a minute to turn off the live stream, etc. Tēnā kua mutu te hui. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.